SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
DinnerBellCorinth.com has the best food in Corinth, Mississippi. Awarded Best Salad Bar, Best Steakhouse, Best Overall Restaurant, and Best Lunch and Dinner under $10. You can't beat it. For delicious food at affordable prices, order online. Visit DinnerBellCorinth.com.
This is Gerard Gibert, and thank you for listening to MidDays here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
MidDays with Gerard Gibert is on the air. MidDays with Gerard Gibert is powered by C-Spire. Power your home or business with C-Spire Fiber. To learn more, visit supertalk.fm/C-Spire. C-Spire Fiber powers SuperTalk Mississippi. Get ready to go beyond the headlines and join a meaningful conversation with people from around the state. You're listening to MidDays with Gerard Gibert here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Midday SuperTalk Mississippi. I'm your host, Gerard Gibert, along with Rhino in the Element Wealth Studio, guiding you through the middle of your day with facts, fodder, and fine music. Morning, Rhino.
Howdy, howdy.
All right, well, it's a little cooler, and the wind is not as strong as it was yesterday, making it more comfortable. Man, it was kind of brutal yesterday with that wind blowing, but looks like it's going to warm up again, right? Just kind of teasing us a bit.
Oh, yeah, it'll be warmer this afternoon than it was yesterday afternoon, and it won't get quite as cold tonight as it did last night, and then tomorrow it'll be back to usual.
Yep, there you go.
Because remember yesterday I said when I looked at the chart, everything north of I-20 was experiencing 8 to 15 degrees cooler than average.
Right.
I checked the chart about 11 o'clock last night, so it's not completely up to date, but it was talking about yesterday's cold. Some parts of the state experienced 27 degrees cooler than normal temperatures yesterday.
Than normal, okay.
Than average.
Wow.
So it was a bit of a cool one.
I wonder what your old buddy Greta
Thunberg
would say about that.
Oh, she's already moved on from the climate scam. She's all about the Intifada and Free Palestine and all that stuff. Kind of like Bill Gates. Bill Gates has given up on his dreams of dimming the sun.
Yeah. I remember us talking about that on the show. He wanted to put this giant screen up in space to filter the sun. Oh, my gosh. Well, it almost as if, as you like to say, they're looking for attention, right? Man.
And they realized that the return, not usually monetarily in the climate industry, unless it's talking about getting tax money or grants from people like Bill Gates, but it seems like that's drying up a bit as more and more of society is willing to just go, hang on.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, because all the gloom and doom predictions never came to fruition. And at some point you say, yeah, you're full of crap. It's just
We've been a decade or two away from complete human annihilation due to the forces of Mother Nature for longer than I've been alive.
That's exactly right.
And nothing has come to pass.
Yeah. Okay, well, I think we'll just move along. In the meantime, up there in Washington, the old bill to reopen the government passed on the House floor. Of course, it first, yesterday, passed. Was it yesterday or Sunday late? I can't remember. When they voted to end cloture.
The procedural was late Sunday.
Invoke closure. End the filibuster and invoke cloture. And that then, of course, is a procedure that allows the legislation to be transmitted. And, you know, in your description of the way bills down there in the state capitol are transmitted from one side of the capitol to the other, you've also discussed and described a similar sort of ceremony in the U.S. Capitol. But I wonder if we need one to go from cloture in the Senate to the floor. What does that look like?
That is a dude that is taller and broader than any you've ever seen before, walking in with a briefcase handcuffed to his arm. And when he opens the briefcase, a man smaller than you've ever seen before comes out with a little bitty gavel and hits it. And that's cloture.
Perfect. We got it. We have defined the ceremonial display of ending cloture. And they did. And it held intact. The same 8 Democrats that voted to invoke cloture also cast their ballot there in the U.S. Senate to pass the continuing resolution, a bit revamped. And that is now being transmitted in accordance with the Rhino procession to the United States House. Except, I think the Speaker had to call them all, didn't he? Hey, come on back to work. He probably needs to send them a map because they've been away so long they don't know where to go. Seriously, they've been off for a while. There ain't nothing to do. But they're all going back, and it looks like we got a deal. And I think the Speaker of the House is moving expeditiously, says that he will fast-track the legislation via various suspensions of the rules, bypassing various procedural hurdles to get the threshold to 2/3 of the chamber, in exchange, I should say, for raising the threshold to 2/3 of the chamber. Not really surprising that that's where we are on that. And then that'll make its way to the president. However, and it will reopen the government. Now, there are 3 areas of government where the regular order is being observed with respect to funding. Let's see, I think, Rhino, that's agriculture, the legislative body itself, if I'm not mistaken, and what's the other one that I'm missing here? There's a third one that's part of that trio of bills that also Veterans Affairs. Just hit me. Veterans Affairs. So it's those 3 will be included in the continuing resolution, but they will fund those areas, those functional areas, for a year. Everything else, short term, through the end of January, when we get to do this all over again. But those 3 areas did receive support in both chambers for an annual appropriation. The other 9 regular order bills really never got to that point. I sure would like to see us return to that process of regular order, debating each bill that funds its respective category of government through the deliberation process. They're in the House, in the Senate, in conferences, and then signed, sealed, and delivered to the president. What we got were 3 of the 12, plus a continuing resolution keeping spending the same level of all the other aspects of the discretionary function of government, and that will endure until the end of January, when we're going to do it all over again. Now, the Secretary of Transportation, Sean Duffy, reports that, this isn't a matter of snapping your fingers and our airports are back to pre-shutdown operational levels. And we're seeing reports of all kinds of delays and shutdowns and cancellations of flights across the country as a result. And he really hasn't provided a lot of definitive estimate on what it's going to take to get the government, FAA and the air traffic controllers and our entire aviation industry back to normal pre-shutdown levels. He just says it's going to take a while. I haven't seen any on this date we'll have it all back. Have you? I haven't seen a definitive date certain on that at this point. Man, so that's where we are. We've got Drake Bassett coming on at 11:05 today. He, of course, the president and CEO of Palmer Home. Bo Luckey, the chief of the Mississippi Capitol Police, at 12:05. He's coming on. The members of Congress on the right, Republican members, are really taking big-time shots at America's health insurers. And look, I know that if there's one industry that people love to hate, it's the health insurance industry. And it's largely because there are disagreements, there are controversies, there are conflicts. Those that have the insurance find themselves often, along with their physicians, their medical providers, arguing with the insurance companies about covering certain treatments prescribed by the doctor. Could be treatment, could be drugs, could be therapies, procedures, etc. And that does cause a lot of conflict, a lot of angst. Heck, we had one fool that got so mad about it, he went and assassinated the CEO of United Healthcare, the nation's largest health insurer. That's a bit extreme, to say the least. I know they're a commonly opposed villain. We're going to talk about that a little bit on the other side of this break from the Element Wealth studio.
Trigonometry.
This segment of Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Really good, a montage of the Armed Forces theme songs. That's because it's Veterans Day. From all of us here at SuperTalk Mississippi, thank you, veterans, for your service to our great nation and your sacrifice. We are deeply grateful to you for taking some time off from your regular life to wear the nation's uniform and serve with honor and pride in protecting our freedoms and protecting our ability to pursue happiness. It's what our founding documents say. And without a strong armed forces that keeps the world intact, honestly, that is not possible. That is a fundamental core responsibility of government, and we are grateful to those veterans, as it is Veterans Day today. So, just talking a bit here about this discussion we've seen a lot about regarding the Affordable Care Act enhanced subsidies. That really was at the core of the conflict in the United States Senate, because the Democrats wanted to extend those enhanced subsidies, which were implemented as part originally in the American Rescue Plan under Joe Biden, for a year, and then extended, and that was 2021, and then extended in the Inflation Reduction Act through the end of 25 this year. And they will, of course, expire without action on the part of the Congress. So there's a somewhat of conflicting reports as to whether or not Leader Thune in the U.S. Senate will, in fact, I think he is saying, right, Rhino, yeah, we're gonna at least discuss this, maybe even take a vote in December. But my understanding is there are a lot of Democrats squawking about this, saying, well, you don't have it right. It's not in the bill. It's just kind of a verbal commitment that's been made by Leader Thune. Is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, that was the quote-unquote promise that was made to get the 8 Democrats to stop voting no.
Okay, that's right. So, yeah, you stop voting no, and you join us here and get the government back open. We're going to take this up. It's essentially what Leader Thune has said. But, again, he's not obligated by any law to do so. It's just a verbal commitment he's made in exchange for securing their votes to get the government open.
Promises in politics are thinner than tissue paper.
Oh, gosh, so true. So, but that's at the heart of all the controversy and the conflict in Washington. It's a bit mind-boggling to me that these same Democrats who were telling us how great Obamacare was going to be, and this is where the ACA exchanges, where those subsidies are in play, were created as part of the original Affordable Care Act law. But now they're saying, no, those subsidies that we passed into law in 2010 aren't good enough. We got to enhance them. We got to improve on them, and not doing so would just be devastating. Essentially, that's the narrative from the Democrats. On the other hand, I will say this. I'm a bit concerned about the condemnation of the health insurance industry in this country. And not that I'm defending health insurers, because I have no interest in a health insurer. I'm not a lobbyist for health insurance companies. But on the other hand, this hit me last night, Rhino. We have Republicans now that are criticizing Democrats because they're standing in the way of sending welfare benefits out in the form of SNAP. So we have Republicans championing that idea. And it's Republicans now, such as Lindsey Graham, who on Sunday was on the floor there. Of course, there may have been 3 people in the Senate at that point. You know how that works out. But he is really taking the insurance companies to task. And they're pointing to, as did the president, this monumental increase in their stock price. I get it. But are we against profit and stock price improvements now? I don't understand what's going on there. I thought that was a Democrat talking point. Anti-profit. Oh, my gosh, their stock price went up. Maybe it was because of Chuck Schumer's least favorite mechanical move on the part of public companies, which is stock buybacks. He just loathes stock buybacks. Now, look, I've had my run-ins. I think anybody that's ever had a medical issue has probably had some sort of problem with health insurance companies. I certainly understand. By the way, it ain't just health insurance companies. I've had problems with casualty insurance companies as well. And I guess I could say I don't blame them if they're trying to maximize their profit. They're a for-profit organization. Where I think we get upset is when they make decisions that appear unreasonable, that conflict with their contract. And if they're conflicting with their contract, violating their contract, then clearly you have a legal argument in that particular case. I just feel like that, like Lindsey Graham as an example. What do you want there, Senator Graham? Universal health care? You want Medicare for all? You want to eliminate the private health insurance industry? You can, on the one hand, say, yeah, I'm for free markets and capitalism and profit making, but I don't want this private company to make a profit. I don't know. Where are we going on this? So we're mad at Democrats for shutting down the government because we can't send welfare benefits out, and we're blasting private companies for producing a profit. And what he said was they've raked in billions and billions. It is true. Now, and you see there's a popular talking point going out in the social media world that, yeah, they made $371 billion since the law was passed. That's absolutely true. The combined net income of the top 7 insurers in the country. That's $14 billion a year. NVIDIA made $26 last quarter. So should we go after NVIDIA with a 63% net operating income margin? Because the health insurance industry makes 3%. It's the Kroger of the health care industry. How much should they make? Is 3% too much? What should they make? I don't know. I've always felt like that the market should dictate that. And I know that he's mad because a lot of federal money goes to him. A lot of federal money goes to a lot of private companies. It ain't just health insurers. There's a whole bunch of money that flows out of Washington that trickles all the way down to locally private companies. So are we saying we don't want the federal government to purchase anything from private companies, acquire any goods or services from private companies? Isn't that what we're debating here with respect to school choice in Mississippi? Oh, my gosh, we can't possibly let public money go to private schools. Well, who the hell they think builds the roads and bridges around here and supplies the IT services that operate the state? I could go down the list. Provides all kinds of resources and assets to education, which is a major spending category in government. I'm a little confused by it, honestly. I'm no huge fan of insurance companies, health insurance companies, but I will say this: it's a terrible industry. It's just no way to make people happy. The only way people are happy is if their premiums are zero and they cover everything. Then you may have some people who are happy. I'm not comfortable with now Republicans demonizing profit. That's something that we get out of Bernie Sanders and AOC, and Liz Warren demonizes profit on a daily basis. Joe Biden demonized the profit. Gee, I thought we were pro-profit, pro-markets, pro-free enterprise. If there's an alternative and an option that could improve that situation. Now, if there's collusion, price fixing, they have some sort of monopoly, absolutely, that's a place where government's got to step in. I don't think that's the case with respect to health insurance. It's just really a bad industry overall. Coming right back.
From the Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Let's do this.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Let's go.
Hit the road, Jack. Don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
What you say?
Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
Oh, woman, don't treat me so mean. You're the meanest old woman that I've ever seen. I guess if you say so, I'll have to pack my things and go.
That's right, hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more.
What you say?
Hit the road, Jack. And don't you come back no more, no more, no more, no more. Hit the road.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. That's where we are. Go to myelementwealth.com or call 601-957-6006 to let Element Wealth help you find your balance between income growth and guarantees. The C Spire text line wide open, 601-879-4395. Did you know Chicago coming to Brandon next year? Wow. One of the best-selling bands of all time, Chicago. Tomorrow morning through Thursday night, you can buy pre-sale tickets just by using the code BAGOOD 2025 at Ticketmaster.com. We're going to give you a chance to win some free tickets before you can buy them later on in the program. Rhino's going to handle that for us. And then I'm going to be at the Sheraton Flowood Refuge Hotel and Convention Center for the Innovate Mississippi Accelerate Technology Conference tomorrow. This event helps fuel Mississippi's tech startup business ecosystem. For more about the speakers, the event, and to register, go to accelerate.innovate.ms. So, on the C Spire text line, we were just talking about the reputation of health insurance companies ain't that great in the United States. It's like one of those industries that people love to hate. They are vilified, demonized, and I get it. Lots of things happen that folks disagree with, and they get mad at their insurance company. I've seen doctors get mad at them, all the above. But I can't jump on board with demonizing profit. So I guess I'd ask the question, it seems to me like we got more and more people on the right that are making the case for government-controlled Medicare for all, socialized health insurance, universal health care. This has been the Democrats' dream for decades. Decades. It was part of the original Affordable Care Act, the so-called public option legislation that did not end up passing. And I remember, Rhino, was it the 16 Democratic convention, the 16 election, when they were asked the question. There was a lot of talk about health care. That was still a very hot topic in our politics. It's died down, honestly, quite a bit until this government shutdown, when that became the core issue, the enhanced subsidies. But I remember asking the candidates on the Democrat during this Democrat debate, 8, 10 of them. Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard was one of them. And Hillary Clinton, of course. And the question was, would you be in favor of eliminating private health insurance and transitioning to Medicare for all? M4A, the number 4, as the acronym they like to use. Every one of them said, yeah. Now it feels like Republicans are jumping on board with that. So I get it. You're not happy about the health insurance companies. A friend of mine just wrote me a note, said, yeah, they're terrible. Well, what do you want to do? You want to convert it to government health care? Because we have a bunch of regulations because of Obamacare. Obamacare imposed more regulations on the health insurance industry than any other. But keep this in mind. The idea, the model, the strategy was, we're going to put all these regulations out there that are going to cost you a bunch of money, health insurance companies, and that's going to necessitate likely you raising premiums. This is in the back rooms now, Rhino. Out in front, of course, it was you could keep your plan and your doctor and your premiums are going down. Obama said it 1 million times. $2,500 a year on average. That was horse hockey, and it was so easy to see. You're not going to put all these regulations on any industry and expect that their cost and the price at which they charge for whatever good or service they produce is going to decline as a result of more government requirements. No way. So, but in exchange for that, the insurance companies wink, right, said, okay, yeah, we'll take that, but we're going to mandate that everybody buys insurance. We're going to mandate that every human in the country is a customer. And they put these penalties in the law. We talked about it yesterday. And then the Supreme Court took that case up, and the Supreme Court ruled whether or not the government could mandate that someone buy a product, in this case, health insurance. And the Supreme Court ruled, well, actually, it's just a tax, right, is what they said. So, yes, therefore, you can mandate it. And it survived. The problem was the penalty, which is done on your tax return in the form of a tax, was not stiff enough for the insurance companies to force all the young, healthy people to go buy insurance, because that's what they were counting on, was young, healthy people who are likely not to use the system that much, but are paying premiums in. And what you know, you're shaking your head because you know exactly where I'm going. You're paying premiums in, and they're paying for the health care for the older, sicker people. That's the way insurance works, health insurance works. You could argue, could you not, that you pay automobile insurance to cover the irresponsibility in a lot of cases. Now, of course, a lot of things happen in your car that are just flat-out accidents. But there are a whole bunch that are avoidable as well. And it's just irresponsibility that causes those accidents. And we all pay for that. Now, I'll give you an example of sometimes you can't help it. I've had 3 deer strikes between my wife and I in the last year and a half. And that is causing my automobile insurance to go up. I'm considered higher risk. Like, heck, I couldn't help it. I mean, when a deer runs out, I'm sure a lot of people out there listening to you, a deer runs out, you got about a split second to react. Depending on the road, of course, you just don't see it. All I'm saying is you're considered a higher risk and that they bump your premiums up. But there are a whole bunch of people that are irresponsible, and you could make the case in healthcare. There are a lot of people who just lead unhealthy lifestyles, and they need more medical treatment. A lot's unavoidable. You're just born that way. It's in your genes, etc. I get it. But in general, we're an unhealthy population. We require more medical care. That's avoidable, and we all pay for that. So the healthy people pay. So where I'm going is the penalties weren't stiff enough for the insurance company's liking because, as we now know, a lot of people just said, I'll pay the penalty, $250, rather than go and buy insurance for, at the time, $300 to $400 a month. Didn't do it. And then in 2017, ultimately, as you looked up yesterday, it was reduced to 0. So the insurance companies supported the ACA on the basis that everybody's going to be forced to buy their product. Who wouldn't like that in business? If a law was passed tomorrow that everybody's got to buy advertising at SuperTalk, you and I could retire. As an example. So that's what happened. And that whole theory fell apart. That was the idea. So here we are today, and we still have the private health insurance industry. The top 7 are responsible for about 80% of the total coverage, commercial coverage. And those companies are also in other lines of business as well, as you know, in the PBM business, in the managed care organization business for Medicaid and states, Medicare Part C, the Medicare Advantage, which is a combination of private insurance and what Medicare pays for. So these guys they've diversified. But the fact is, it's a 3% net income business. So even though Paula Meridian says, I pay, and then, I'm sorry, we don't cover that. Man, I hear you. I've had that happen as well, Paul. But I'm only making the point that in spite of that, it's not like that they're really producing this massive, unreasonable amount of profit. It's 3%. So how much should it be? Is 3% considered too much? I mean, it's a serious question, and that's why I feel like that all this condemnation sort of suggests to me that a lot of people who would fashion themselves, proclaim themselves as private, free market people, principal people in healthcare now seem to be advocating for full government-based health insurance, Medicare for all. You either got to let them be a private company and make profit, or you got to say, we're no more private companies in the insurance business. Let's go totally to Medicare for all, which is what the left's been wanting to do for decades. Final segment, hour 1, coming up next.
And I guess that's why they call it the blues.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Well studio. Paul says, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm not paying $700 plus a month for something I may not use. Paul, just curious, do you have insurance on your home? Because I feel the same way. The amount of money I pay for homeowners insurance is on up there. I've never filed a claim. And that is, knock on wood, I've been in my present home 17 years. That's what insurance is all about. I mean, it's risk mitigation, and I get it. I know it's a hard pill to swallow. You pay $700 a month. I can't say that I don't use health insurance. I do. Thankfully, I'm healthy, but, a couple of times a year, checkups and so forth. And then my wife, the same deal. But that's still, though, it's the protection against a more catastrophic health event where it would absolutely bankrupt you. Number one cause of bankruptcies in the country. You know what happens is that you still aren't getting the provider. They're not getting paid. And all that comes back on us in the form of higher premiums to pay for all that didn't get paid. And also keep this in mind that, Paul says, can't get the loan without insurance. Yeah, but if you own your home outright, you don't have to have homeowners insurance. You're paying a lot. And it's the same with a vehicle. In Mississippi, you do have to have minimum liability insurance, even if you don't have the other provisions, the other coverages as part of automobile insurance. And also the law, the Obamacare law, 80% in the small group market or the individual market of premium revenue has to be paid out in claims. 85% in the large group market has to be paid out in claims. And if not, the insurers must rebate the amount by which they missed that threshold to their policyholders. To date, they've sent out about $13 billion of rebates in this country since that reform was implemented in 2014. So over 11 years, you can do the math. It's a little over $1 billion a year they send back in the form of rebates if they don't meet that 80 to 85%. And that's why they only make 3% on the bottom line. It's just not a very profitable business. I'm not defending them. I'm just sharing the math here. So the alternative is we could just say no more health insurance companies. We're all going to be on Medicare, government. Now, the reality is, Rhino, I think I've shared this with you before, and I want to say that you affirmed, doctors love Medicare because they pay and generally don't ask questions because they're not in it for a profit. It's not my problem, people that just rubber stamp everything, Medicare and Medicaid. Not 100%. There are some issues that come up that they won't cover or just don't qualify for coverage. But in general, there's no profit motive. Now, keep this in mind. We borrow money. We borrow money to make up the shortfall, even in Medicare right now. Because Part D, the prescription drug coverage, no revenue appropriated to cover that. We borrow money. Sure, if you run up $38 trillion of debt, you can keep the cost down. And then the other issue is, if we converted to a Medicare for all system like Bernie Sanders wants, it seems to me what Lindsey Graham wants, because he sure isn't happy with the private insurance companies. If we converted to that and the health care industry was reimbursed at Medicare rates, the entire U.S. economy would collapse. I know that sounds like hyperbole, but in the National Institute, what's it called, NIH, in UK, is that what that stands for, National Institute of Health? I believe so. Their government-provided health care system, NIH.
NHS.
Okay, that's what it is. I get that confused. Thank you. National Health System. Isn't that what that stands for? Is that right? The NHS.
Yeah.
NHS. That's the UK socialized medicine government healthcare system.
National Health Service.
Service. Thank you. I actually did a little digging last night. I got curious. The average physician, I had to do the conversion from pounds to dollars. But on average, all these doctors, they're government employees. They work for the NHS, the National Health Service in the UK. A specialist, $175,000 a year. That's what they make. In this country, if you're a specialist type of doctor, I mean a sort of a unique specialist, Rhino, that's nearly a 7-figure a year job. That's $1 million a year job. Million. But what you get are a bunch of government employees doing the doctoring. Fox News, SuperTalk News coming next, and then it's Drake Bassett, President and CEO of Palmer Home.
Middays with Gerard Gibert is brought to you by the Mississippi Business Journal. Visit msbusinessjournal.com. Scott Coopwood, publisher and president.
And now, another hour of the talk that keeps Mississippi talking. Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Begin your transition now.
Now on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's hour 2 of Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. We are pleased to welcome now Drake Bassett, President and CEO of Palmer Home. Hey, Drake.
Hey, Gerard. How you doing?
Doing great. So give us an update from the Palmer Home. What's going on?
Well, it's really great. It's been a good, I can't believe we're already talking Thanksgiving, Christmas, but our kids have been in school. They've been doing lots of different activities. It's been fun to watch them, have a good school season. I was just thinking about some of the activities they've been able to participate in. So it's been a lot of fun to see them, not only learning their academics, but also, getting involved in new things. As they get older, of course, they get to, enjoy some new programs. So that's been pretty cool.
Yeah, good deal. So it's our understanding that there is a need for house parents and mentors. Tell us about that.
Yeah, sort of the lifeblood of what we do involves having people involved in the lives of our children. And, for some people that may look like mentoring. Mm-hmm. And mentoring for us is exactly what it sounds like. You and I probably have mentors in our lives. People who've influenced us or given us counsel, or they've just been a great friend, but they've been with us along the way, whether that's professional or whether that's personal. Well, these children need mentors. And, of course, we have great staff here and we have people who are involved in their lives. But what we're talking about is if somebody has a few minutes in their life and they would be willing to spend a Friday evening, or they'd be willing to maybe participate on a Saturday, and over time, maybe it becomes a weekend kind of thing. We've seen mentor relationships grow where you might have, say, a couple who say, we want to be a mentor couple, and we'll take, a young boy or girl, and they'll go with us to the ball game on Saturday, or they'll, go with us as we do some Christmas shopping, or they'll do this or that. Obviously, people go through the process to confirm, that it all matches up. But we've had such great success with those kind of mentors, and that leads sometimes to interest in foster care, and it also the need for house parents. Some people say, I want to do this full time. I'd love to be a part of your program. And I think, again, the lifeblood is the influence that these folks have on the children that we bring into our care. That's really needed. So if anybody out there is interested in that sort of work, our website talks about it. We'd be happy to talk with you, but by all means, it's just such a great opportunity to make an impact and serve in your life.
Absolutely. So, Drake, what's the current count? How many do you have in the Palmer home these days?
Yeah, well, I was just looking at what we served last year, and I think it's always a little hard for people to grasp, but we served 269 children last year. Oh. And, you say, wow, that's a lot of kids. Are they all on your campus at once? No. We have a different number on our campus on a revolving basis, and anywhere between 30 to 40, 30 to 50, because that's what our campus is set up for. And if you think about it, our campus is designed to take children immediately from a crisis situation, and what we call a crisis situation. A family struggling and they need help, and so children come to us, just like the siblings who came to us. It was last year now or earlier in the year. 4 or 5 siblings who needed a place that night. And that's what we're here to do. But we also have other programs, our transitional program and our family care program, where we're working with families, where we're working with children who are 18 and up. And through all of those different programs and our ability to help children find the right place, some families are calling us up saying, I've got a situation and I need some help, and we may or may not be the place for them, but we've become, thanks to SuperTalk and so many folks across Mississippi, we've become the go-to resource for helping families find the right place. So we serve families in so many different ways and serve children, so we're thrilled to do that. By the way, you've been talking a lot this week, appropriately, about the programs that are out there, and when some of this politics stuff starts happening and you pull the curtain back, you do have to ask yourself, do these programs help or hurt? And every once in a while, we come face to face with the fact that some of these programs, even with good intentions, have caused a level of dependence that has really caused people to be almost disabled. And so they're floundering and they're struggling. Well, that's exactly where we meet families, in that particular space. And again, when I say we need house parents, we need mentors, we need people, we're talking about people who will influence children for the future, so that they learn responsibility, so that they learn to work, so that they learn about faith, and they take ownership of their life. When I hear these statistics and I hear all these numbers, never mind the politics, something tells me that somebody missed out on good teaching, good principled living, and I believe Palmer Home offers that to the children who come to us, and I see that all the time.
Yeah, there's no doubt that that's a huge problem. I was just speaking to an association this morning, and they were talking about the difficulty they have of just hiring people to do the work they need, and they literally said, we feel like we're competing with welfare. That's their primary competitor. Yeah. It's not the other folks in the room that are in the same business. It's welfare. And
that's right.
I guess, Drake, and I know that it's certainly possible to subsist on the various programs, as you talked about, that are available. But I feel like that the children aren't getting the mentoring to inspire them for something better and greater. Like, yeah, you can live, but why aren't you aspiring to take advantage of the wealth of opportunities to live an even better lifestyle? And by the way, you're experiencing the dignity and the contribution of your labor while you're at it.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. We believe every child, we do. From a faith standpoint, we believe every child is created in the image of God. And when you start from that standpoint, you say, okay, well, that means the potential can go up or the potential can go down. And that's true for all of us. And when you disable a mental component of what your capacity can be, we're created by a giver and we're made to live and to give and to thrive. And the question is, do you just want to, subsist?
Right.
On donuts and French fries, or do you want to thrive?
Right.
Do you want to grow? Do you want to learn the discipline of work? And do you want to learn the discipline? I've said many times, and I know your folks have heard me say this, some of our children, for the first time in their life, are seeing a man and a woman in the house working together. It's not always easy. You know that. If you've been married, they see that in action for the first time. They see what it's like to work together, to participate, to help each other. And our house parents, I give them a lot of credit, are teaching our children responsibility. Nothing comes for free. You need to get up. You need to work. You need to go to school. You got to do your homework. You got to go to bed. If we could all just lay around and play, that'd be great. But it really wouldn't be that great, because ultimately we're not thriving. We want these children and we want future generations to thrive. And Palmer Home, I believe, is we've put our hand in the till on that. We believe it's important to teach children those principles.
Amen. And so I think it's fair to point out, not only is the child benefiting and will benefit as an adult, all of society benefits from this. That's why that work is so valuable. We all benefit from this. You're a net contributor as opposed to a net recipient, and we're all better off with that balance.
Boy, that's exactly right. And, contributing, to sort of the welfare of these children, teaching them these principles when we look to the future. Because often in these discussions, when you talk about things, we talk about breaking a cycle. Well, what cycle are we talking about? Well, part of it's complex poverty, and part of that is some of the principles that have just seeped into those programs. And like these workers say, or these other associations say, we're competing with people welfare, who really don't feel the push, right? And so if we're going to break a cycle, then we do want to teach a young woman or a young man that the way that you get out of the cycle is to get up and to get moving and to know it's not going to be easy. I know it's not going to be easy, but the reality is your life will be richer. Your life will be fuller. Your life will be more of a contributor to overall society if you can embrace those principles. And so we try to practice those. We certainly try to teach those because we believe that's life-changing for a child. And we also believe it breaks the cycle that they came from.
Amen.
And, we've seen some of our kids graduate high school for the first time or go to college for the first time. What are they doing? Well, they're taking new principles, new approach, new response, and that ain't easy. But the reality is their life is going to be different.
No doubt about it. Well, I know you guys do fantastic work, and I just want you to know you're not only providing a valuable service, I can't emphasize this enough, to the children in these families, but to society overall, and we're appreciative of that, Drake. Always good to talk to you and see. If I don't see you, hear from you again, you have the best of holidays, and please give our regards to all the parents, all the staff, and all the children at Palmer Home. Thanks, Drake.
Thanks a lot, Gerard. Appreciate everything. Take care.
Yes, sir. We're coming right back in the Element Wealth Studio.
Are we going to do this? Middays with Gerard Gibert.
Keep rolling. 3, 2, 1.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Got a hold of me. I believe I'm getting dizzy. Help me out. I keep thinking about the night in Memphis.
We're back with you in the Element Wealth Studio. Appreciate you being with us today. The Dow up 350 at this moment. The NASDAQ, after a huge day yesterday and lots of exuberance over the ending of the shutdown, the NASDAQ closed up, over 500 points, had a huge day. Consumer sentiment continues to fall, however. Lowest in 20 years. Consumers not feeling so great about their futures. From a financial perspective, I saw Brian Moynihan, Bank of America CEO, on the Business Channel this morning, and he was talking about it, but he said, we're not quite seeing it the way the consumer surveys reflect it, which is, I think, good news. But one thing that kind of dovetails into that just a little bit, you probably have seen it, Wendy's says they're going to close hundreds of U.S. restaurants, that they're just not able to make money in a lot of them. 200 to 360 locations. So a lot of jobs will be lost. But, more importantly, it's the eyesore of a building like that that's purpose-built to be a Wendy's restaurant that's just going to sit there. That's not a good deal. But that's what they said. As of December 29th last year, there were 5,933 locations. So we're talking about, I guess, what amounts to a sort of a fraction of that at the end of the day. 7% or so of them. But I'm not sure if this is a kind of a harbinger of things we could expect in the economy or not. They say that...
well, their largest rival and arguably the biggest in the business, McDonald's, has certainly changed tack on their value meals. They've gone to lowering prices, and they've put in certain markets with a new dollar menu that's not just a small fry and a side of apples from the Happy Meal.
Yeah.
So they've definitely seen their sales diminish profusely when they started jacking their prices up to the point where you can choose McDonald's or you can go to the Mexican place and it's about the same price, whereas not all that long ago, Mickey D's was about half the price of the Mexican place, and Mexican places are notorious for being pretty cheap meals.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's Mexican restaurants generally, the way I've always described them, it's a lot of volume for a small amount of money, relatively speaking.
Well, I mean, when you keep things simple with the meat, tortilla, beans, cheese, and rice, it's not a whole lot to worry about.
Yeah, no doubt.
Whatever combination you're going to put those in and what configuration they're going to be eaten in.
That's right. It's an economies of scale economic dynamic. Sharpie in Wayne County says most of our homes do not have parents who know how to teach life skills. It's not this generation, but the past generations. And that, I think, is a function of something Gary Neberg likes to talk about. We do, too, on this program, of the just acceptance of the dissolution of the nuclear family. The greatest form of governance ever invented, honestly, is the nuclear family, in my view. And we have seen that just fall apart, and we don't seem to talk about it. It's like we've normalized that. And you've heard me share many times the fact that in our state, 57% of live births are covered by Medicaid, which indicates that's generally a single mother that is having that baby who has a very low income. And that unto itself just means that the baby is going to be raised in a house that makes it more difficult. Again, doesn't guarantee it. And I know there are a lot of fantastic single mothers out there that absolutely are able to make that work. And God bless them. My hat's off to them. I've coached some kids in the past with that situation that go out of their way to make sure, and that they are special. But I think it's fair to say they're unique. They're the exception. They're not the rule. And I dare say most of these had a stream of income that didn't qualify them for their child being born to Medicaid. It just, you're already poor and you're bringing a child into the world, which just makes that situation even more difficult. I think we've got to get to a point where we don't normalize that. And we do call attention to it as an issue that sort of perpetuates the problem. And that's how we end up with the cycles that just keep going on and on and on. And then we have I think a lot in this country that just believe they're entitled to all that the government has to offer. And they've known no life other than that. I think that's kind of what Drake had mentioned, right, with the generational challenges there. And they bring them into the Palmer home and teach them different values and instill values of work, reward, of personal responsibility. That often gets missed in the home. And so I agree with you, Sharpie. I'm getting off on a tangent a bit, but it's a huge problem. It's a huge problem in our state, huge problem in our country as well. So just talking about this whole situation with health insurance, and man, I know it's gotten expensive. I can't remember when I was in business ever a year where my health insurance didn't go up. My group coverage for my employees didn't go up. Some years, I guess it would stay the same. Most years, and it wasn't always a major increase, but that's before Obamacare. It's a function of the cost of health care itself, not so much health insurance, but health care, which is what the insurance companies reimburse, it continues to rise rather dramatically. And a lot of that is a function of market conditions, the market dynamics of, my phone dropped there, of supply and demand. So I'll give you an example. You're probably aware of this, Rhino. There's an acute shortage of radiologists in this country. Big time shortage. And so what happens when there's a shortage? Because labor is a commodity. And when there's a shortage of that labor, the price, the compensation for that labor goes up. Now, I don't know what the average pay is for a radiologist. My guess is it's $500,000 a year on average. And there's probably some specialized radiologists that bump that on up. And it depends on, of course, the market. You're likely to make more in a more expensive city. You're looking it up. What do you see there?
Yeah, I mean, the AI spit out $500,000 annually.
There you
then
go.
You look at the numbers, and they're all south of 500,000, but they're still lowest one's 315,000.
Yeah. So in the UK,
it's a healthy six-figure salary.
In the UK, it's a $90,000 a year job. But it's government-provided free health care. Now, I'm not saying the radiologists in the UK are not as good as the ones in the U.S., but I guarantee you that there's an acute shortage there as well. You've talked about it before. You've cited some cases you're familiar with, right? You break your arm, you go in, you got a broken arm. We need to x-ray it so we can set it properly. 6 weeks, come back. Well, hell, it's already healed by then, healed wrongly, likely at that point. So I've seen a lot of people point to that. I'm just worried that I'm seeing a kind of an attitude towards socialized medicine in this country among people on the right, because they're mad at the private health insurance market. And I'm not happy about it either, but I don't think the solution is to, you just can't make any profit. Well, then you're not a private company. You're a not-for-profit, and that doesn't work out very well. So is the government. That's how it ended up with $38 trillion of debt, because they spend without any concern for whether or not to have the money. Private companies have to worry about the money. Now, the president has come out and proposed that we should convert the subsidized marketplaces to health savings accounts. Just send everybody an amount, deposit an amount in an account. Ostensibly, I believe, is the way it would work. And then you would just direct that money to your direct patient health costs as opposed to buying insurance. Well, if we sent that money, if we divided up all the subsidies the government provides in the marketplaces to get today and just divided that evenly into health savings accounts, it's $5,000 a year. Doesn't take long. I mean, one minor sort of medical problem would get you more than $5,000 a year of cost. Then what do? Well, the idea is you're going to go buy catastrophic coverage if it were available. A lot of people could do that, but there's a whole lot of other people that can't, and then they end up being dumped in the ER, and we all pay for that. It's just a big, dang, complicated problem. We're stepping aside, coming right back.
From the Seabrook.com, Middays with Gerard Gibert.
What? This is so
awesome. On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays from the Element Wealth Studio. Kevin on the road says, I think people... Oh, first he said, I just got an email yesterday that said my company insurance is going to be $1,200 a month starting in January. So, Kevin, is that for an individual? It sounds a little high for an individual, or is that for individual employee and spouse, individual employee and spouse and children? That sounds a bit high in Mississippi, at least, for an individual. He says the problem with insurance now is that the government got involved. Well, absolutely. But I'll just point out a lot of these reforms that were implemented, people like. They just don't want to pay for it. They cost money. I agree. We should repeal all those and let the market work. But on the other hand, there's got to be some way we can deal with a situation where, okay, your insurance is out. You're on your own. You chose this super low-cost insurance, but it has a backstop, a limit on how much it will reimburse, and you need more medical care, and you've got to pay that directly, and you just end up not paying it, and the providers absorb it, and then they pass it on to those of us who do have more robust coverage. And that's a problem as well that needs to be addressed. He goes on to say, I think people are tired of paying more and more when lots of people don't pay anything and they get treated by physicians just like I do, but they don't pay squat. Yeah, that you just described the Medicaid program. So blind people, disabled people, serious question, should they pay? I mean, legitimately disabled, cannot work. The elderly who are impoverished, that's who Medicaid covers. And then you got Medicare, which you pay into, except Medicare's exploded considerably, and the amount we all paid into it insufficient to cover the bills. The claims being filed on Medicare, and there's no we borrow money literally to fund the prescription drug Part D benefit. No funding. This was a big criticism of W. Bush because he's the one that pushed for that, added that benefit to Medicare without adding any money, any source of revenue to it. $1,200 for family, he says. Yeah, okay, that sounds about right. As a person who's probably older than you, mine for my wife and I is more than that, just as a couple. So, and while I agree, and Rhino's pointed this out many times, we should have options that would allow younger people to buy coverage, just, for example, catastrophic coverage, which is the most likely need that they have, not the full boat of coverage that older folks have, more regular medical care. That's right. Except then what happens is people who are older and sicker, they pay a lot more. And that's a problem. So, man, I don't know. I really don't. There's all kinds. Is it a
problem if somebody has a DUI and they have to pay more car insurance? Or
no.
Is it a problem if somebody drives recklessly and totals 3 vehicles in a row and has to pay more for their car insurance?
No. It's a problem in that they're still going to get the care whether they can pay for it or not. That's the problem. That's the problem. So should they pay more because they're likely to use more? Well, sure. I mean, that's the way insurance works. You're a higher risk, just like your description of a DUI driver, for example. But in the case of health insurance, you can't go to the auto body shop, get your car fixed, and walk out and not pay. Can't do that. You can go to the hospital and get 7 figures of medical treatment and not pay because hospitals in the ERs are required to provide stabilizing medical care to all comers. Doesn't matter what their immigration status is. Doesn't matter if they have insurance. It just all that matters is they can't pay. Don't have any means to pay. Don't have insurance. Don't have any personal assets. I don't know what to do about that. That's the old Reagan EMTALA. I know what Thomas thinks. We just let them die in the street. Have the baby in the parking lot. The L in EMTALA is labor, by the way. It says if you show up at the ER and you're in labor, you're going to get prioritized because usually that's an urgent situation. And they're going to take care of you and deliver that baby and ask questions later about, hey, can you pay? Do you have insurance? I may be exaggerating a little bit here, Rhino, but not too much, honestly. That's the way it works.
That's why we've seen a boom of anchor babies since Reagan.
No doubt. Absolutely 100%.
If you can get here, legal or illegal, and you're pregnant, you ain't got to worry about any of the costs for the delivery, and you've got yourself a brand new U.S. citizen.
That's absolutely right. And the U.S. citizens paid for the delivery of that baby. We pay for it in the premiums that everybody gets rightfully upset about when they say, what? That aspirin was $40. Yeah, that's because the 10 that they dispensed down the hall paid $0. You're the stiff that paid the $40, right, for that one aspirin that paid for everybody else's. Now, that's literally the way our system works. And that's just broken.
To the point where you have people from countries all around the world, including those that we would consider adversarial,
wow,
that can afford to fly to the U.S. to have their child in the U.S., to game the system in more ways than one, to have the free health care for the birth of their child, and the U.S. citizenship.
No doubt. And that also is a problem driven by wide open borders. You can't deny it. There's so many downstream problems associated with that. Wide open borders. I think I shared the other day, I saw a report from someone like with the Hospital Association in Colorado, which has been a place where lots of illegals. Isn't Denver a sanctuary city, I think, right? They're nuts. And he says that they're congesting the ERs to the point where tax-paying American citizens are taking a back seat to illegals that come across the border and that are clogging up the ERs in Colorado. This was a hospital association type executive that was pointing this out as a huge problem. On the C Spire text line, Adam in Madison says, my company's health plan is getting a 55% increase this renewal. Wow. That is huge. If insurance companies went away, we could afford the cost of health care. So how many times have we seen someone paying cashless, cash pay less than your deductible? It's all a big profit-making game. Our legislature are a part of it. So I'll ask the question, should we go to total government-supplied health care where there's no profit? And every physician and healthcare worker...
Well, that's not what they're saying.
What are they saying?
They're saying if you do away with the healthcare insurance entity that it has become, the over-bloated, over-burdensome, costly, nonsensical crap we have to deal with, they're talking about if you go to, say, you got something in your eye, you got to go to the eye doctor for them to get it out. You can file it on your vision if you have vision coverage, and it'll cost you an arm and a leg. Or you can pay cash, and it'll cost you a couple $100.
Yeah.
Well, if the doctor can afford to perform the transaction for a couple $100 in cash, why are we including all the thousands of people sitting behind their desk checking the spreadsheet to make sure that X, Y, and Z is covered, but A over there isn't? Why do we have this giant insurance complex if you can go to a doctor and pay cash for less than what the insurance is going to cost you and less than the insurance is going to pay the doctor?
You actually answered your question. If the majority of people didn't have insurance and reimburse the doctor at the insurance rates, you wouldn't get that cash price. It'd go up dramatically. If everybody went to cash, it'd go up dramatically. They ain't giving up anything because you're paying cash. Do not be confused by that. It's only because the 1 out of 100 that do that, yeah, you'll pay me today, but if the other 99 all went that way, oh, wait, I'm going broke. I'm going bankrupt. And there would be some moderation of that, considerable normalization of that figure. It's the same thing that I'm saying. If we all went to Medicare, sure, that's absolutely true. We wouldn't have all the private health insurance bureaucracy. But if every doctor got reimbursed and provider got reimbursed at Medicare rates, they'd go bankrupt. They're having a hard time making ends meet now. I just researched that over the weekend. About half the hospitals in this country are cash flow negative. Cash flow negative. We have a bunch here in the state that are like that. The demand and supply thing is real. We're not producing enough healthcare professionals. And as a result, and just to work in that industry, they're saying, you got to pay me a bunch of money if you want me to work in this industry. And then COVID ran a bunch of them out. We burned them out in COVID. We're coming right back. Stay with us.
Polyumpa, Mississippi.
Attention, adoring fans!
It's time for
Middays with Gerard Gibert on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
All right, it's Veterans Day. That's why Rhino is cranking up the military Armed Forces theme music. We
That's
appreciate
the newest one.
I was just
Space Force.
Okay. Semper Supra?
Yeah, always above.
How about that? Okay, I forgot. That's a new branch of the U.S. Armed Forces. So Ben from Madison says, it's obviously easier to have a concise, consistent message when your party is in the minority, but it feels like Republicans really need to get their messaging in order, considering we are less than a year out of the midterms. 50-year mortgages aren't going to win many hearts and minds. Yeah, I agree with you, Ben, and I'm simply pointing out that if we want to rein in the cost of health care, I think everybody obviously wants to do that, and I don't think you'll find a person that won't complain about the precipitous increase in the cost of health care over the years, no doubt. And it's one of those things where, for the most part, you can't decide not to buy. It's not like it's discretionary for a lot of people. I get it because the mandate's been watered down to, we looked it up yesterday, it's still in effect, but it's at 0.00. So there's no government dictate that you go out and buy insurance.
But you are still technically breaking the law if you do not buy insurance.
Yeah, and
there's just no penalty for it.
And when you check the box on your tax return, which is one of those, and of course employers have to include that on your W-2 to confirm that you're enrolled and you have where they offer it. So I hear you, Ben. I just worried that what industry's next? You make too much money. That sounds like Bernie Sanders. I would expect that to come from, maybe I should change my opinion of Lindsey Graham and Josh Hawley. He's out as far as I'm concerned. He's a damn socialist. That guy's unbelievable.
The only thing Lindsey Graham is consistent on is he wants other people's sons to go and die in war.
That's absolutely true. He has been consistent on that, hasn't he? And so I understand you're not happy about the fact that insurance company CEOs make a lot of money. CEOs in a lot of companies of these big companies make a lot of money because they're very rare. Last time I checked, what is Otani making now? Like $100 million a year, some insane amount of money? And that's fine. I just want to be clear. He is unbelievable. He puts butts in the seats. But why don't we ever condemn these professional athletes they're in their 20s making this guy? What about the ones playing college sports? Some of them make more than a 30-year CEO do that have a bunch of families under their purview and responsibility. I'm just saying that the market has got to dictate this, not government. And when Lindsey Graham goes up there with charts about, look how much their stock price has gone up, I thought I was listening to Schumer. That's his favorite line. That's all I'm saying. So should we make sure government is out of the way so that we do have a robust free market environment in all industries, honestly, not just insurance, but all industries? Somebody sent us something earlier. There's allegations on the part of the president, and I think there's an investigation being launched into possible collusion and price fixing among meat packers. And if that's the case, they're breaking the law. They need to suffer the consequences. I'm all for that. Therefore, should we break them up? I don't even know how you could do that, honestly. I'd have to think about that. So how do we get more companies in the meat packing business to increase competition?
Well, most of the most vocal people in that conversation seem to be more in favor of deregulation to allow for your local farm to sell you a side of beef.
I'm for that. Cut out the middleman, the meat packer. I'm absolutely for that. I agree with you. I think that's a good idea. And it wouldn't surprise me if we don't see, if they have the wherewithal to do so, some of the cattle farmers maybe create their own co-ops of meat packers, right? You know, the catfish guys did that years ago. They not only produce the fish, raise the fish, but they own the processors. I'm all for that. I think that makes sense. With respect to health care and health insurance, I think people overlook the fact that the vast majority, by law, 85% in the big group market, 80% in the individual and small group market, of what you're paying them goes directly to the providers. So was it Paul a minute ago said, yes, $700 a month? Well, just keep in mind that insurance company's got to pay. If it's through your employer, it may not be in his case, but say it's not. They got to pay $560 of it to the providers. That leaves them $140 to operate the company. That's why they have a terrible. Their net average profit percent, 3% in the health insurance industry. I did research this. For the Fortune 500, it's 9.4%. It's one of the worst industries from a profit perspective in the country. We're coming right back after the news with Bo Luckey, Chief of the Capitol Police.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
That's what I like to listen to.
You're listening to Middays with Gerard Gibert. Here on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It is Middays. We're coming at you live from the Element Wealth Studio. It's hour 3, the afternoon portion of the program. We kick it off with Bo Luckey. He's the chief of the Mississippi Capitol Police. Chief, thanks for coming in. Good to see you, man.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate that.
You bet. So give us an update on the Capitol Police. We were just talking offline. This was a pretty big deal when the legislature expanded, I guess, the jurisdiction there and put a program in place where you guys interface and work hand in hand with other law enforcement agencies to try to just to improve the safety of the capital city of Jackson.
Absolutely. So originally the first, I guess, real steps that it took was taking Capitol Police from under the Department of Finance and Administration and putting them under Department of Public Safety.
Right.
So once they went under Department of Public Safety, they started looking at trying to change Capitol Police into a more of a enforcement element in the city of Jackson and kind of step away from the traditional Capitol Police that was just within the buildings.
Yeah.
And that's where I come into play. May of 2022, I was brought in by Commissioner Sean Tyndall and Governor Reeves, and it's really taken off since then. So whenever I started in May of 22, we had 8 square miles. Now, because of House Bill 1020, we expanded to 20. I believe it was 24 square miles, 25 square miles with House Bill 1020. Mm-hmm. And that was in July of 23. But because of the Supreme Court, all the hold up in the courts about House Bill 1020, we didn't really start enforcing and start patrolling that additional area until around January of 24. Since then, in July of this year, we've expanded again, but a much smaller expansion, only about 3 to 4 square miles. Basically the area east of 55 between Northside Drive and Canton Mart, we've taken that in. Mm-hmm. So what does Capitol Police look like now? We're a lot more like a regular police department. We're a large police department at this point. We're sitting at about 150 officers. We are looking to get to about 180 officers, so we've got about 30 spots open right now, and we are actively trying to hire officers as we speak.
Okay. So, but the City of Jackson Police Department, some of them are assigned as well. Is that right? How does that work, Chief?
So the idea behind Capitol Police expanding was to allow for the City of Jackson to pull the officers that are within the CCID's boundaries and relocate them outside the CCID to be able to use their manpower more efficiently.
I see.
So our primary responsibility is within the CCID, within that 28 square miles. There really is no need for Jackson Police Department to be within that area patrolling and doing normal law enforcement work, because we are the primary responding agency. We respond to all the calls for service. You know, we're the ones out there patrolling that area. However, it doesn't change their jurisdiction and their ability to be in that area. So they remain in that area. They keep a footprint in that area. They actually assist us on some of our calls in that area. You know, but whenever the calls come in, they forward them to us if we don't get them directly.
Okay. All right. I got it. Makes sense. So what have you seen since this law was passed? The district has expanded and the scope of your services has increased. Have we seen a decline in crime as a result?
So what we see, you got to be careful when you talk about numbers, because we're expanding so much, and we're also just a new police department in the area where we're more proactive than that area has seen in the past. So when you look at the numbers, we're out there, we're working hard. The officers are doing a great job and working hard. Now, when you step outside, when you look around, the people that work and live in the City of Jackson, in the CCID, they see the difference. They feel the difference.
I personally have, and I've heard it, and I got to tell you, I just feel safer when I go to the area now, because I see the officers, I see the vehicles, and you just feel some sense of protection that I don't think existed before.
And that's our overall mission, is to provide a layer of law enforcement there within the CCID, to where the citizens that live in the CCID, visit the CCID, work in the CCID, to where they feel safe. We want to be able to bring people back to the City of Jackson, bring economic growth back to the City of Jackson. That's what it's all about.
And you can't have a thriving economy, as you well know, and unless you have safe streets. It's not possible.
Yes,
they're not coming. Nobody's going to live there. They're not going to make any investments and launch businesses or expand businesses unless they can have some confidence that their assets and their lives are going to be protected. And that's what you guys do.
That's absolutely right, and that's what we strive to do every day.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate it, and I can tell you that it doesn't go unnoticed, because I talk to other people that travel into the area as I do on a regular basis, and everybody just feels better about the visibility. And Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but as a deterrent to crime, visibility of law enforcement's a big deal, is it not?
That is. I mean, that's your number one, your first layer of deterrent is being visible, being present.
Sure.
So, absolutely. And that's really what we want to do. What we realized in the very beginning is, in the City of Jackson especially, just being able to ride through an area and then say, okay, well, that area we've been seen in that area, it's done now, we can move on to the next area. No, you can't really do that here. You gotta stay in that area. You know, we have a lot of people, or I say a lot of people, we have the criminal element in the City of Jackson. They're looking for opportunities to do something wrong.
Indeed.
And it can happen very quickly.
Indeed. So you and I will be attending an event this coming Thursday. I think it may be the 45th event. It's called the Squat and Gobble. It's a local event, and all proceeds raised in the event are used to combat domestic violence and human trafficking, and to help some of the victims of that as well. Our friend Tommy Turk, that is really the creator of this and is super passionate about it. But you and I are going to be having a little conversation, I think, on stage along with Miss Mississippi. This is a great event. Well, what I want to ask you about is How much of this do you see in the district there, in the central Mississippi and the state overall, human trafficking and domestic violence?
So when it comes to domestic violence, law enforcement, we experience that on a daily basis almost. I was just looking at some numbers the other day for Capitol Police, just in the CCID. And again, one of the things you look at with domestic violence is how unreported it goes as well. Huh. So it's something that, even to be as unreported as it is, it's in our top 15 of most visited incidents with Capitol Police. And I'm sure it's that way across the state and probably across the nation. Unfortunately, a domestic violence situation is something that you're likely going to go to as a law enforcement officer, and it's also one of the most volatile situations you can go to. Yeah. You got to think about the fact of you got two people together that are having a rough time, and it can go either way when the officer gets there. Yeah. Now, as far as the human trafficking, that's something that, on the flip side, is not really enforced as much as it should be. And that's one thing that at the Attorney General's office, myself and Nick Brown, who's now a lieutenant with me now, we traveled the state of Mississippi teaching officers how to deal with human trafficking and how to work human trafficking cases. And that's actually where I met Sandy Middleton and Christina and all them, was working on these operations for human trafficking.
I got you. It's one of those things that the average citizen doesn't really encounter. They don't see it. It's not visible. They know about it. They hear about it. We talk about it here a lot, and lots of other folks across the state. But it's probably more prevalent than we are aware of. Is that fair to say, you think?
That is fair to say. So it's one of those things where you're right. The average citizen doesn't really see it, doesn't really realize it's happening. And the average law enforcement officer looks at it as just another problem with commercial sex or prostitution. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things that's difficult about working those cases is you have to really get into that commercial sex industry to work human trafficking effectively. Okay. Because a lot of your victims in human trafficking are in that world, in that realm.
I got you.
And of course, a lot of our general public doesn't see that world. And then, like I said, the law enforcement officers, they're accustomed to working that world a different way than seeing these victims as actual victims.
Okay. But they are trained, I assume, to deal with these. You're right. I see too many reports across the country of a domestic violence situation. Law enforcement officer goes into it, gets in the middle of it, and does their best to make sure they're covered and they're safe. But something happens to the law enforcement officer a lot.
Well, it happens. Unfortunately, it does happen. And as far as training, there's a lot of agencies out there, a lot of organizations out there that provide domestic violence training. Okay. And we try to take advantage of it. The Mississippi Attorney General's office, they've been a big champion of domestic violence training over the years. Department of Public Safety out at Malota, they offer classes all the time.
Gotcha.
So it's something that we're very heavily trained on. But you're right, it can go bad at any moment. It's just, like I said, it's a situation that's very volatile.
Chief of the Mississippi Capitol Police, Bo Luckey, has been our guest. Thanks for coming in, Chief. Appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're coming right back in the Element Wealth studio.
The one.
Come on.
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
All right, we are back
on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Welcome back, everyone. It's Middays. We certainly appreciate Chief of Mississippi Capitol Police, Bo Luckey. I think he was honestly the perfect selection by the governor and the commissioner for that role. I've talked to members of the Capitol Police who really think the world of the chief, and I think you're going to have a good outcome in law enforcement when you got, of course, your dad, right? You come from that world, so when you have that sort of respect up and down the organization, I think that genuinely or generally yields good results, as it does in any company and organization. So law enforcement's no exception to that, for sure. On the C Spire text line, just sitting here thinking, why are air traffic controllers government employees? That's Keith and JS. Yeah, Keith, there have been discussions in the past about privatizing air traffic control. I'm not exactly sure what that would look like, but I know that's been a discussion in the past. I think many of us famously remember Ronald Reagan canning all of them, and because their union got aggrieved about something, I don't remember, but he stood up to them.
It's basically a government position because it's been a government position since World War II.
Okay.
And pretty much any government position that was created as a part of World War II or immediately after World War II, for whatever reason, societally or politically, it's incredibly difficult to change any of those positions. Like, I want to say it was, 40 or 41 when the federal government took over complete control of airport towers. And it was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it was in regards to reports of infiltrators potentially creating havoc in the U.S. during World War II.
Oh, man.
So because of that, we have federal employees dictating when and where the planes fly.
Makes sense.
All this time later.
Part of the FAA, right? I think air traffic, Federal Aviation Administration. So I'm not sure what that would look like or how that would work, but I'm not opposed to exploring the possibility of privatizing. I did read a couple of reports on the break that the airlines and the transportation secretary are warning that it's going to take a while to get back. Days is what they said, to get back to normal. Now, whether or not that normal falls in place prior to the busiest travel time of the year, and that's Thanksgiving, through the airports, not sure. Unclear at this point. Honestly, I think had the shutdown lasted a couple of more days, it's probably unlikely that we'd get back to normal in time for Thanksgiving. But that's where we are with respect to that. On the C Spire text line, did y'all see where over 100 children were recovered in Memphis? Thank you, Chief, for being so active in these situations. We see you. I haven't. I wasn't aware of that. What's going on there?
Yeah, there was a task force, I think it was led by the U.S. Marshals, that have been working through about 1,000, 1,500 different warrants in the Memphis area, and through that they have been credited with finding over 100 missing children.
Wow. Missing children?
Yeah, I just finally found it. The task force has arrested 2,342 individuals on various charges, stemming from 203 firearm warrants, 264 narcotics warrants, and in 41 days, 101 missing children have been recovered.
Man. Speaking of children, Cincinnati, another Democrat-run city, the Queen City, I think as it is referred to, a 6-year-old student at an elementary school in the Cincinnati public school system was tied up by the hands and legs and shoved into a car by a school employee. Tied up so tight, had marks on the wrists. There are photos. Can't see the child's face, but there are photos of this child in the car, tied up from the rear. These people need to be answering questions, and they need to be terminated immediately. No questions asked. There's nothing that this child could have done unless they're brandishing a gun. Maybe you tie them up if they're doing that. But that should never happen. But in general, if this is some sort of sick disciplinary action on the part of school employees, fire their butts now. Man, oh man. Unbelievable. Thomas in Greenwood says they were hog-tied. Yes, Larry and Mize, I did ask the chief offline, and he did say that he has ties to your town of Mize there. Pretty cool. Let's see. We were talking earlier about this alleged price fixing, collusion, price manipulation by the four major meat packing companies in this country. An investigation has been launched. I just said that maybe it makes sense for the farmers to consider forming co-ops for the meat packing part of the supply chain. He said on the C Spire text line, Nebraska cattlemen are trying it. Not sure how it's worked out. Yeah, interesting.
And I forget who I think it was Mose that chimed in and said that we can already do that, talking about allowing a local farmer to sell to a local person. But even then, you have to do it very strictly by the book, and you have to make sure you don't say certain things or do certain things. Because if I'm not mistaken, it still has to be the sale of a live cow, and then the slaughtering has to take place at a USDA-approved facility, or it's some exempt facility. So, like I was saying, there's regulation they want to get rid of to get out of the way of, oh, I grow cattle, you want cattle, here.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I don't know that I have a problem with that. But look, collusion's illegal. If these people are engaged in legitimate collusion, price fixing, that's illegal. I mean, they should suffer the full consequences of breaking the law there. That's just flat out illegal. I would submit that, 4 sounds like a lot of concentration, given the fact that that's a big industry. Beef is. But seems like there would be enough heated competition among those 4s to keep prices in order, but not when they're colluding. Not if they're colluding. And the idea that it's only them, and I'm not going to say collusion, but I've seen situations where in markets where there's a lot of bidding and proposaling and competitive bidding. I've seen situations where, okay, you take this one, I'll take that one. I have seen that. I've seen it in my own industry. On the C Spire text line, this person says, I'm 100% conservative, but I do not have a problem with health care for all based on a percentage of your income. Put the insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies out of business because the United States is their profit center, and they let people die in the name of profit, and that is what you're for. No, that's wrong. What you said is totally wrong. And secondly, you say you're 100% conservative, but what you just defined is Obamacare. That's exactly how the Affordable Care Act exchanges work. And by the way, the same applies to the private commercial insurance sector in the group market. Your employer must, if it's more than 50 employees, must provide so-called affordable insurance. That in accordance with the law, the Obamacare law, no such requirement existed before then, that provides that the insurance they offer you must not exceed 8.5% of your income. They have to pay the rest of it. Otherwise, you're then permitted to go to the exchange and buy insurance where it won't exceed 8.5% of the income, and the employer has to pay a penalty. So you're saying you're conservative, but you just made an advertisement for Obamacare. What am I missing here? It's exactly how it works. It's exactly how it works. And if you say if insurance companies went away, we could afford the cost of health care, and I'm not debating that. I'm simply saying their net profit's 3%. It's 3%. It's about $42 billion a year in a $4.6 trillion industry. The reality is the people making all the money in healthcare, it's the doctors. And I'm not opposed to that. I want somebody who's happy with their pay cutting on my innards. I don't want them mad about their compensation while my life is literally in their hands. That's what we have in the NHS, and I think they've just become numb to it. I think it's so crappy. In Canada, too. They've become numb to it. They just accept
it. Also,
it.
$90,000 is pretty well paid in England when average salary is $28,000, $30,000, something like that.
You're right. But in this country, ain't nobody going to be a doctor for $90,000 a year. Even if you just did that for the cost of living. That's all I'm saying. We're coming right back.
From the Seabrook.
And now, the talk that keeps Mississippi talking.
Now, on to the real part.
Dynamite! On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
The United States Navy. That's their song, Anchors Away. That kind of gives you little chill bumps when I hear it, honestly. It's Veterans Day. That's why we're playing the military music. Appreciate that, Rhino. So I'm just looking at this report on the screen and just finding out about it. You apparently knew that our president is skipping the UN Climate Summit in Brazil. You can't make it up, folks, because they cleared 100,000 trees.
Yeah, they
to build
literally
a road.
built a highway in the middle of the jungle to transport the attendees of the climate conference to the climate conference.
Incredible. What a bunch of hypocrites.
After they flew to the climate conference on their private jets.
Oh, of course. Why would you have it at a place that you got to have a 100-mile road to get to? What's up with that?
Because the climate scam is nothing more than a scam and a way to funnel money into your own self-interest if you are part of the climate scam.
Well, I applaud the president for calling it out. He just did on Truth Social. He said it's a scam and he ain't going. And he's calling them out. It's horrendous. Unbelievable. What a joke. Thomas says, why are we taking 600,000 Chinese students? So apparently you were telling me on the break that the president made a reference to that yesterday about bringing in importing Chinese students.
Yeah, he basically said we've got to allow the 600,000 Chinese students to come study in America or half the colleges will go broke.
I don't agree with that. I know that there's huge pressure.
I agree half the colleges might go broke.
Yes, agree.
Where we disagree is that needs to happen.
Right. That's a demand and supply thing. And, I just saw a report yesterday, the Ford CEO saying we need to have a discussion about the value of the typical 4-year degree. And I've always thought that the biggest takeaway, I've said it before on the show, from a college education is learning how to learn, learning how to manage time, more so than the content. Not totally, I get it. But
it's become bastardized into credentialism.
Which is what's wrong. No doubt about it. Completely agree. And that, of course, that cycle, it continues and is promulgated and propagated by the education community, who many of whom think, not all, but many of whom think because of all those credentials, they're just superior. And they're looking to protect that distinction, if you will, that, I guess, unique feature that they have. That's a minimum of the population, 14 degrees and 23 PhDs. And look, I'm generalizing. They're not all like this, and you know that. But there are many who truly do feel that way, that they are superior, and they're also the ones usually indoctrinating our kids with Marxism at the same time.
The credentials in question have been devalued in multiple ways over multiple decades, to the point that a certification that takes you 6 weeks of studying and an hour or two taking a test can get you a better paying job than going into debt for 4 or 5 years of a college education.
And to your point, it's what employers seek, more so than they do the degrees. In our industry, it's all we cared about. Technical certifications, industry certifications, solutions certifications. It's all we care. It's all our customers. Why? It's because that's all our customers cared about. It wasn't, hey, Gerard, when you do this project for us, how many computer science PhDs do you have that's going to be involved? They don't ask that. But they'll ask you a litany about all the certifications you'd have to prove, by the way. And before I sold the business, the good news is all those who administered those certifications, it automated that. Used to be you literally had to make a copy of the certificate and include it in your proposals. Now it's all electronic and you can do that. And there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. That's what assurance they had that you can do the work, not the degree you got. That doesn't assure that you can actually do the work. And I think that's
in a fast-moving, fast-growing industry like tech, by the time you've got your degree, it's outdated.
Totally agree. That's 100% right. You got to keep going. That's what I said. It's a license to learn. You think the learning's over? No, it's just starting when you graduate, essentially. Hopefully, you've learned the discipline and the system. You've developed a system for learning information and committing it to memory, and more importantly, applying it to real-world applications. That's where it makes sense, real-world use cases. We have farmers in North Mississippi on the C Spire text line who sell their beef in packages in a storefront, already processed and packaged. Good to know that. But someone else on the C Spire text line says, here in Smith County, our local processing plant sells 1/4 or halves to individuals and then the butcher, but you can't buy already butchered meat. So, okay, got you. Well, that seems like an easy, straightforward change. If that's something our legislature needs to do, let's do it to combat the high price of beef. And if there's price fixing going on, being perpetrated by the meat packers, that's a big problem. Let's see. Who has jurisdiction, Capitol Police or Jackson Police? I don't know who has the priority there. For some reason, I think it's Capitol Police, but I'm not sure. Because what Bo said, the chief, is that, they still can show up in the footprint.
Arrive on the scene, can both be called to a scene, and can both control the scene, but I believe it's geographic over who has the highest jurisdiction. So if it's within the CCID, Capitol Police has higher jurisdiction. If it's without, JPD has it.
Okay.
But they can both appear, like I said, both can work a scene in either.
Yeah.
If needed.
Okay. Well, I think it's worked out well, personally. I really do. I think it was a good move, good law.
It's not unlike you have with agreements between county law enforcement and city law enforcement involving events that occur on or near the city limits. Or if you have two cities bumping up next to each other with two separate police departments, they have an understanding or an agreement to where, hey, if I'm pulling somebody over and they just happen to pull across your city limits, I'm still conducting the stop.
Makes sense.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. I think it's worked well. Langston says on the C Spire text line, stop chasing degrees. Get your 2-year certificate. My son did and was working at age 19 and a half years, hand over fist money. Yeah, I watched in my industry. We probably were among the first, the IT industry, to really advance this idea of all these various certificates. I mean, going back to my early days in the industry in the 80s, and it just got to where that's all customers cared about. And it was your assurance, me as an employer, when the employee went through all the training, completed all the certification tests, many of which were both written and labs, we were confident you can do the work. So you just need people with an aptitude, just generally smart people and people that enjoy learning and have a curious sort of personality. That's who really makes good workers in that world. And so I think our industry, again, was kind of first on the scene with that. But you're seeing that also occur across a number of other industries as well, where that's more important than the degree is. But you could argue the degree gets you positioned to go learn all this new stuff you need to sometimes to get it. Some people don't need that, but that would be the takeaway, I would say. I'm not for importing 600,000 people. I hope the president
especially
Chinese people. I hope the president has a change of heart. I'm not for 50-year mortgages. I'm okay with it if they want to issue 50-year mortgages and the market does that. Financial institutions, mortgage
30 years
lenders.
Bad enough. A 50-year mortgage, you're basically renting your house from the bank and hoping you don't die.
Yeah. I mean, I hadn't put an amortization schedule on it, but my guess is you probably don't even dig into the principal to any amount until, year 15 or so in a 50-year mortgage, I'm thinking. So you're paying. And
10 to 15,
around all there. That interest is front-loaded in accordance with the way mortgage loans are amortized. So you can only hope that, honestly, that the value of your property continues to escalate.
But I'm convinced that's only been suggested because it's not politically or even socially acceptable to do what actually needs to be done to bring housing prices down, and that is to deport 50 million illegals.
Yeah. I totally agree. So Chris from Oxford says, so what you're saying, it's not like it was on the Dukes of Hazzard where the pursuit stops at the county line.
Oh, no.
Yeah, I think Rhino's right. I've understood that as well, that there are agreements, if you will, among the
And even
adjacent.
if they have to hand it off, you may outrun a cruiser. You're not outrunning the radio.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's a good point. We have farmers in North Mississippi. Oh, yeah, we got that one already. Mike in Gulfport said many of the changes made during and after World War II were largely because of lessons learned. Before changing or eliminating those, we need to double-check the need. Yeah, and so something else, Mike, that you may be aware of, but the whole system, the whole practice of health insurance being provided by your employer, that is something that was invented, devised in World War II. It's because we had wage controls during the war, and it was difficult for companies to compete for labor, for talent, because they couldn't pay them more direct wages. And so they came up with this idea of providing benefits, so-called fringe benefits. Chief among them was what little insurance was available at the time, because there wasn't a lot of health care available at the time. That's where it became a practice to provide insurance from an employer to an employee. And we still have that today. I think it ought to be decoupled, personally. I think that would help with the competitive aspect. Final segment and some tickets to give away are next.
Hey, this is Bob. And
Middays with Gerard Gibert.
It is on.
On SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Okay, so as we pointed out earlier, we got Chicago, one of the greatest selling bands of all time, coming to Brandon. They're coming next year, and we have some tickets to give away. Brino?
Yeah, now's your chance to win a free pair of tickets to see Chicago before you can even buy tickets. All you got to do is be the 13th person, lucky number 13, to text us the words Saturday in the Park. Text Saturday in the Park to 601-879-4395 and be the 13th person to win a pair of tickets to see Chicago before you can even get your hands on them with your own money.
There you go. All right, so on the C Spire text line, what else we got here? Gerard, Ray and Farr says, Gerard, that Medicare that you paid for all your life in January is going to also cost you now $206 a month for the privilege of having it. Yeah, you're right. You got the parts A, B, C, D. A, the primary Medicare benefit coverage, hospitalization, and then B is for various clinical type care. What's the word I'm looking for there? When you're not in the outpatient type care, you're not in the hospital, but you're getting other medical services. Then you got C, which is the Medicare Advantage. That's a combination of insurance from a private insurance company along with your government-provided Medicare. And then D is the prescription drug benefit. I wish, Ray, that $206 a month. My Medicare for my wife and I, $1,500 a month. It's because of our income. So paid in all my life and then have to pay $1,500 a month. Now, that's for a Advantage plan that's similar to typical commercial employer-provided coverage. $1,500 a month. What a deal. Which tells you that people with more income are actually funding the Medicare benefits for others. That's the way the system's designed. Let's see. Why can't we cut out the insurance company middleman? You can. You can pay cash for health care services. They'll gladly take your money. Just keep in mind, though, that if you have some sort of catastrophic, serious medical condition, how much that costs, even if you pay cash. You have a heart attack, cancer, stroke, some sort of other medical condition that requires constant treatment, constant drugs as well. That just gets really, really expensive, and that's where insurance is beneficial.
In fairness, that's still going to be really, really expensive with insurance, just not as expensive without it.
Well, it's going to be expensive in that you're paying premiums, but the insurance companies, according to law, they you max out on your out-of-pocket costs, and after that, they got it. That's by law. $9,200 for an individual, $18,400 for a family in 2026. That's
$18,400 is a lot of money.
Oh, I agree, but compared to a $150,000 heart procedure, it's not. Relatively speaking. Again, and that's not going to the insurance companies. That's going to the surgeons and the hospital and all the other healthcare professionals involved in that. And I'm not exaggerating either. I've had a couple of friends that have had that. And I was shocked when I saw the bills. And you could say, okay, we'll take cash, $75,000. Most people don't have that kind of money sitting around. So it's like anything else. You know, you have insurance for your car, and you may have a minor sort of bump, and your insurance pays it, no big deal. You could have paid for that out of pocket without having insurance. But if you have some super serious crash, you're out the whole car at that point, and you're glad you have insurance. It's a tough one, really is. But that's what it would take. We could certainly get rid of the middleman if you just want to pay cash. You are required to have insurance, but as Rhino points out, the penalty is $0. Let's see here. What else we got? Oh, yeah. Please educate me. Y'all mean to tell me a 50-year mortgage exists? I complain about, this is Chad Van Cleve, my 30-year, I hope I make it that long. I don't think they exist now. The president has recommended it, the creation of a 50-year mortgage. Now, he's talking about, of course, where government has some purview over mortgage terms. Look, a mortgage lender could give you a 50-year mortgage today. There's nothing preventing them from doing that. Hard to sell. The interest rate's going to be a little higher, but the payment's going to be lower. Just that's the way it works, because you're paying it over a longer period of time, but your accumulation of equity in the home is obviously done at a much slower pace. The only way it works is if you're going to buy. This would work this way. You're buying a property in an area where the price of housing is expected to continue to increase rather dramatically. So you're borrowing money at today's prices on the house. Yes, you're paying a lot more interest, but you're offsetting that additional cost and the risk of not building equity by the fact that, well, the price of houses here just continues to skyrocket. And so but that's just a rare scenario,
I was about
honestly.
to say, I can't think of many places that have had the housing prices continue to go up for 50 years running.
They don't. They're not sustainable. Maybe you could play it for 10 years and then roll it, but that's still extremely risky. Out of here today, we're at Innovate Mississippi tomorrow. Stay safe and God bless.
SuperTalk Mississippi Media Production.